Most chicken keepers keep paying for feed every single month without realizing some of the best chicken food is already growing around them. And once you plant it, it keeps coming back. If you've been feeling that pinch at the feed store or you've noticed quality changing bag to bag, today I'm going to show you 7 plants that can cut your feed bill fast by turning your yard into a living feed source. Not a gimmick, not a sprinkle this powder. Real plants your birds can actually use. And here's the loop I want you to watch for. One of these plants can become a daily protein bank, and another one quietly fixes digestion so your flock uses nutrients better. Most folks never connect those two, but once you do, everything gets easier. I've tested a lot of cheap feed ideas over the years, and these are the ones that actually hold up in a normal family backyard. So let's ground this in reality. Commercial feed is convenient, but it's also expensive, and it's not always predictable. Prices go up, ingredients change, sometimes you open a bag and you can tell it's not the same as last time. Meanwhile, chickens didn't evolve eating pellets. They evolved eating greens, seeds, bugs, and plant matter all day long. A little here, a little there. Constant movement, constant pecking. What we're building today is a calmer version of that, something that works in a small yard and doesn't turn your life into a full-time farm project. And we're going to follow a simple structure for every plant. 1. What it does for chickens nutritionally. 2. How to grow it long-term so it keeps returning. 3. How to feed it correctly so you don't create problems. And 4. The quiet benefit most people overlook. Behavior, manure, resilience, all the hidden stuff. This is the kind of garden, coop, kitchen loop we build here at Family Yard Kitchen. Steady, practical, and family-friendly. One quick safety note before we start. These plants can replace a lot of what you buy, but don't flip a switch overnight, especially with chicks or high-producing layers. Keep clean water, offer grit, and keep calcium available free choice for layers. Slow and steady wins here. All right, plant number 1. Moringa is one of the strongest green feed plants you can grow because it packs nutrition into the leaves. When people call it a miracle tree, I don't love that wording, but I do love what it does in a chicken system when you use it the right way. Moringa leaves are naturally rich in things your birds constantly need: support for egg production, stronger shells, feather regrowth, and immune strength. It's one of those greens where you notice the flock looks a little more put together. Cleaner feathering, better energy, more steady laying in many flocks. Moringa loves warmth. In hot climates, it can be a true long-term plant that you cut and it comes right back. In cooler places, treat it like a seasonal plant or grow it in a large container you can protect when the temperature drops. Here's the key. The more you harvest, the more it wants to branch. So instead of one tall stick, you get a bushy plant you can clip from regularly. Don't just throw whole branches in and hope for the best. Chop the leaves, crush them, mix them into other greens. And if you want a winter option, dry the leaves and crumble them into a jar. That way, even when the yard goes quiet, you still have summer nutrition in your pantry. When birds get steady, nutrient-dense greens like this, they often stop acting so desperate for protein. That can mean a calmer flock, less squabbling, less feather picking, less frantic pecking at each other during stress seasons like molt. Now, moringa is powerful, but we still need balance. So the next plant is one people ignore because they're focused on the part humans eat. Sweet potato leaves and vines are one of the most overlooked chicken feeds in the backyard. Most people plant sweet potatoes for the tubers, but the real secret is the top growth, the vines, because they just keep producing. Sweet potato greens are supportive. They're not just fluff. They help with gut balance, the kind that can reduce messy droppings and help birds handle heavier foods better. Think of them like the background music of a healthy flock. Not flashy, but it keeps everything working smoothly. When digestion is steady, chickens absorb more from whatever else you're feeding. Kitchen scraps, seed heads, greens, whatever you've got. Sweet potato vines are almost hard to stop. They spread, they root along the way, they handle heat, they tolerate rough soil better than a lot of pretty garden plants. And here's what makes them perfect for chicken feeding. Harvesting stimulates more growth. Clip vines and you'll often see them push back even faster. Don't just throw a whole rope of vine in and expect neat eating. Tear it up, chop it. Even a rough chop helps your birds actually consume it instead of dragging it into mud. You can feed them fresh, or you can slightly wilt them in the shade for a few hours. Some keepers find that reduces waste because the leaves don't feel as springy. Because these digest in a steady way, you can get better manure, less undigested material, a more compost-friendly dropping. And that matters because manure is part of the loop. Feed the birds, birds feed the compost, compost feeds the garden. All right, now we've got a strong nutrient plant and a digestion support plant. But we still haven't hit the biggest reason people keep buying bags: protein. So plant number 3 is the one that can change everything if you set it up clean. Duckweed is one of the closest things to a homegrown protein feed you can produce in a small space. And yes, it's that bright green floating plant that looks like it's doing nothing, but nutritionally, it can be a powerhouse. Protein drives a lot of chicken performance: growth, muscle feather quality, egg size, and laying consistency. When protein is low, birds survive, but they don't thrive. Egg production can get inconsistent, molting can drag on, feathers can look rough. Duckweed helps fill that protein gap in a more natural form: soft, easy to eat, and often easier for birds to digest than harsh, dry concentrates. You don't need a pond the size of a swimming pool, a shallow tub, a stock tank, a clean barrel cut in half, even a small lined basin. The keys are still water, sunlight for part of the day, and consistent moisture. You harvest the top layer, and it grows back. You harvest again, and it grows back again. But let me be clear on the clean way. Don't grab duckweed from random ditches. Don't pull it from questionable water. Grow it yourself so you control what's in it. Some keepers boost production by adding tiny amounts of nutrient water, very diluted, managed carefully. If you do that, keep it controlled and avoid contamination. Clean water matters. Scoop it, drain it a bit, and offer it fresh. Most chickens recognize it as food quickly. You can also sun-dry it and store it for later, especially when the yard is dry or the garden is between seasons. Because duckweed can be rich, pair it with fibrous greens, like sweet potato vines, so digestion stays balanced. Duckweed can keep producing even when land plants slow down, especially if you have water available. So it becomes a resilience tool, a buffer, a protein reserve that helps you avoid panic buying feed when conditions change. All right, protein is huge, but protein alone isn't the full story. Because without minerals, especially for layers, you'll still see weak shells and long-term issues. So plant number 4 is the quiet backbone plant. Comfrey isn't flashy. It doesn't look like a miracle, but in a chicken system, it can act like a deep mineral support plant that keeps the flock's foundation strong. Comfrey is known for pulling nutrients from deeper soil layers and concentrating them in the leaves. For laying hens, minerals matter, especially when you want strong shells and healthy bodies over the long haul. If you've ever had those thin-shelled eggs show up out of nowhere, you already understand why this matters. Comfrey is typically grown as a perennial. Once it's established, it returns year after year. It can tolerate different soil types, and many varieties handle partial shade. And like the others, it responds to harvesting. You cut leaves, it regrows. Cut again, it regrows again. The deep roots are a big deal because in dry periods, deep-rooted plants keep producing when shallow-rooted plants struggle. This is important: moderation. Comfrey is best as a regular small addition, not a massive pile. Chop the leaves and mix them with other greens or your base ration. Think of it as mineral support that makes everything else work better. When birds have mineral support, the protein and energy they eat gets used more effectively. Comfrey doesn't replace duckweed, and it doesn't replace grain, but it helps the whole system feel steadier, less wobble, better resilience. All right, now we've covered nutrient-dense greens, digestion greens, protein, and minerals. Next is a plant most people don't think of as chicken feed at all, but it helps your flock in a very practical way, especially in hot weather. If you live where bananas grow, this one is gold. Banana plants aren't protein-rich like duckweed, but they bring something that matters more than people think: bulk, moisture, and gut balance. Chickens on only dry, concentrated feeds can get stressed, especially in heat. Hydration affects egg production, appetite, and how well birds regulate body temperature. The soft inner banana stem is very moist, And the leaves offer fibrous material that slows digestion just enough to help birds absorb nutrients from richer feeds. Banana material can also supply potassium and trace minerals that support muscle function and metabolic balance, helpful for layers and fast-growing birds. Bananas are naturally regenerative in warm climates. The plant produces pups, suckers, so even after a fruiting stalk is done, the patch continues. So you don't need to replant the system constantly. You manage it. Preparation matters. Chop leaves into manageable pieces so birds can actually eat them. Slice soft inner stem thin, especially for smaller birds. And always pair banana material with higher protein feeds. It stretches your feed supply without turning the diet into empty filler. Banana leaves and stems slow down feeding. Birds spend more time pecking, pulling, and working through fibrous material, which mimics natural foraging. That can reduce boredom, reduce aggression, and make confined runs feel calmer because the birds are occupied in a natural way. Now, we still need one more major piece: energy. A lot of feed cost is grain, calories. So plant number 6 is special because it can give you greens and a seed harvest that chickens actually recognize as food. Amaranth. It's one of the few plants that can genuinely play 2 roles in your chicken yard: leafy greens and seed/grain-like energy. The leaves are thick, nutrient-dense greens, supportive for immune health, feather quality, and overall condition. And the seeds provide energy and nutrients that help birds maintain body weight and laying consistency, especially when pasture slows down. This is one of those plants where you can picture the scene. Late summer sunlight, dry seed heads, you rub them into a bucket, and your chickens come running like you just opened a feed bag. Amaranth tends to thrive in heat and poorer soils, and in many gardens, if you let some plants go to seed, it will reseed itself the next year. That's a big deal because it's one less annual input you have to rely on. Offer the leaves fresh or dried. For the seeds, many keepers lightly crack them or cook them to improve digestion, especially if you're feeding a larger amount. And you don't have to do it perfectly. The main idea is don't waste what the plant is offering. Use the leaves during the growing season, store seeds to bridge the off-season. Amaranth seeds can act like a season bridge. When green growth dips, stored seeds help prevent that sudden drop in energy that can lead to a dip in laying. Now, plant number 7 is the one that feels almost too simple, but it's one of the best forever feed plants for small yards because it turns bare dirt into a living snack carpet. White clover is one of the easiest, most practical feed plants to establish in a normal backyard. It's not exotic, it's not expensive, and that's exactly why it matters. Clover is a forage plant that supports steady pecking and grazing. It can contribute useful nutrients and encourages natural behavior. Birds nibble, scratch, move, repeat. And when you have living green underfoot, birds spend less time standing in mud or staring at the fence. That matters in small runs. Clover spreads, it fills in, and it often comes back year after year once it's established. It also helps improve soil by supporting a healthier ground layer, especially if you've had areas turn into bare dirt. A simple way to use it is to create a small rotation patch. One area rests and grows while another area gets used. Even a modest rotation makes a big difference. Let birds graze it in a controlled run or rotated area. Or cut handfuls and toss them in as fresh greens so you control how much they get and where they eat it. The goal is to keep it clean and prevent it from becoming trampled mud. Clover attracts insects, and insects are natural protein. So you're not just feeding clover, you're creating a small ecosystem that brings extra nutrition into the yard. All right, that's the 7. Now let's do the part most videos skip: how to combine these so your flock stays productive and you don't accidentally create gaps. Here's the truth. No single plant replaces commercial feed all by itself. The power is in combination, because chickens need different things at different times. So think of it like a simple family meal. You've got the main base, you've got the protein, you've got minerals, and you've got seasonal energy. Here's a clean, easy map. Duckweed as the protein bank when water is available, moringa as the nutrient-dense green that supports steady laying and recovery, clover as a supportive forage layer that keeps birds grazing naturally, sweet potato vines for gut balance and steady droppings, Banana leaves and soft stems for moisture, fiber, and calmer feeding pace. Comfrey as your quiet mineral support used regularly in small amounts. Amaranth seeds as a stored seasonal support when pasture greens decline. If you want a simple mental formula, use this. Daily greens base plus protein topper plus mineral support plus seasonal seed scoop. That's it. And don't forget the basics that make everything work. Clean water always, grit for digestion, calcium available for laying hens like oyster shell, and a slow transition when you change feeds. Here's why this matters for families like ours. When prices jump or supplies get weird or life gets busy, a living feed patch gives you options, not panic. Options. And you don't have to do all 7 at once. Let's make it practical. If you're starting from zero, here's a calm way to build this without turning your yard upside down. Day 1. Pick your easy win plant. Choose the one that fits your climate and space. Sweet potato vines if it's warm season and you want fast growth. Clover if you want the easiest forever ground cover. Moringa if you're in a warm climate or can grow in a container. Start with 1. 1 is enough to begin. Day 3-4, add your protein plan. If you can manage a small water setup, start a duckweed tub the clean way. If water isn't realistic, lean harder into moringa and forage and consider how you can support protein through other safe sources you already use. Day 5, plant your mineral backbone. Set comfrey in a spot where it can live long-term. Give it time to establish, then harvest small amounts. Day 6, seed amaranth for your energy bridge. Even a small patch can give you leafy greens plus seed heads later. Day 7, set a harvest rhythm. Small cuts, often. A little green feed regularly beats a giant pile once a week that gets trampled and wasted. Avoid any plants from roadsides or chemically treated areas. Introduce new greens gradually so droppings stay normal. Duckweed only from clean, controlled water you manage. Comfrey in moderation. Don't abruptly remove balanced rations for chicks or heavy production layers. Reduce purchased feeds slowly as your system proves itself. This is how you build a feed system that's steady, not stressful. So here's the big takeaway. When you grow food that regrows, pulls nutrients, and supports natural foraging, you shift from buying feed to producing feed. And that's one of the calmest forms of backyard resilience there is. This week, pick 1 plant and start. And next week, come back because we're covering perennial food trees that produce for decades with real storage value and low effort. It's going to pair perfectly with everything you're building here. And when you're done here, watch 12 Ways Backyard Chickens Die, Prevention Guide for Beginners. It'll help you protect the flock you're working so hard to feed. Just click on that now on the screen.